what I might do is, let me just see if I, yeah. Yeah, I think that should be okay. I'm actually going backwards with my ability in technology, which is it's quite telling, isn't it? As technology gets more and more advanced, I seem to be getting less and less advanced. So, but anyway, really the whole point here is not really for me to kind of lecture anybody on what is and what isn't, and what should be so and what shouldn't be so. It's really about kind of offering something up here that's just an exploration. And, you know, in the exploration, we can discover things together, really. And the thing that I've been kind of concentrating on, if there's a kind of general theme of this particular meeting this evening, it's really this idea of assumptions and, you know, what truth and our ability to look past the constructs of what we've taken to be true. And the thing that really caught my attention this week has been this idea of creation, and the idea that of how we came about, the first inkling of life on this planet. And I've kind of looked into it very, very deeply. And just gonna have a quick chat here. Ah, great. Vanessa's been talking about that too. Brilliant. And I've come across some very interesting things in this whole exploration, which has been kind of like, I mean, not that I didn't suspect that we're not told the truth. I mean, of course, that, you know, I guess also being an artist or a creative or a creatively minded person, it almost comes with the territory of sort of questioning the so-called pantheons or axioms of authority, people that say that this is so and this is a fact and this is real. And really, you know, I feel that my role as an artist and a creator and a kind of investigator of consciousness is to kind of look into these things and you know, with hopefully with an open mind and an open heart, and to see on a deepest level what is so, and what axiom can I base my existence on. Now, this idea of creation, we're told that in a way that, you know, kind of we've done that's kind of been sewn up. We understand how life came about. And it turns out that we don't. And there's a couple of very, very interesting scientists now who have come on the scene, and in a way, these kind of establishments, these scientific, like I said, pantheons of science, these established bedrocks of so-called truth seekers, but actually more they're truth makers. And in the scientific world, there's kind of the underwritten rule is that you don't question the people at the top. And anyone that dares to question these people, I mean, you know, you can question them to a small degree, but if it starts to get really serious, then you get either labeled as a crackpot, or you get, you know, kind of sidelined and ignored and all kinds of different things. And actually, there's a couple of, James Tour was one of the people that I've been looking at. And the other one, his name escapes me. I shall get it for you here. Stephen Mayer. And these two people have really brought into question the whole way in which we're looking at life and existence. And strangely enough, there's a couple of I've made a video about this on my YouTube channel. There's a couple of caveats in this whole thing. One of them happens to be a Christian. So that kind of like in the sort of the pantheon of science, that kind of immediately rules him out from, so you can be anything else. I mean, I'm not a Christian, and I'm not, kind of trying to underpin any religious beliefs here. However, I've got nothing to say about if someone has a particular faith. And the fact that he's a Christian, but also he's a brilliant scientist. So somehow the fact that he has, I mean, you could say the fact that he's even placed his faith in a higher possibility is possibly a good pointer, and he's quite open about it. I'm not sure about Meyer, Meyer, yeah. I'm not sure about him. I haven't looked into him too much. I don't know. I don't think he's a Christian. I think he's just a seeker of truth, or or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, they've very skillfully and adeptly pointed out that this whole idea of us emerging from some primordial swamp or soup with these kind of biological ingredients, and then somehow with the temperature of the earth and lightning striking, all of these things coagulated together, and somehow we ended up with the first cell and the first simple structure of life, kind of this thing that actually came to life, something out of nothing. Inanimate dead objects suddenly came together and life sprung out of them. Now, they've proved mathematically all of these different ways. Apparently there's not enough possibilities encrypted into the entire time left in the foreseeable universe that would give you enough combinations of possibility for life to suddenly happen like it's described to us. And I find this interesting because once we start to look past these so-called bedrocks of truth, and we have a mind that is willing to question these things on a deeper level, we start to come to the realization that actually at the inception, in many ways, comes all the way back to a miracle or magic. It doesn't, these kind of things in some ways are synonymous and interchangeable. So we could say that, I call it original magic because I love magic. I love the idea of it. And I mean, this is not illusionist magic. This is kind of like what I would call real magic nature, the magic of nature, the majesty of nature and all of its brilliance. Somehow there's a magic spark that took place, and maybe even didn't take place in time, because then we get to another thing, that the time arises in language. I think we talked about this in the last session we did. So we come to this point where we're immersed in kind of a universe of assumptions. And the more we start to look closely, we realize that, or we can realize that, these assumptions hold us captive to a particular way of being, a particular way of showing up in the world. And it's often difficult for us to look past these and to come to a point where it's almost like we come to a point where we know nothing. And that even sounds like a cliche. But really, the only thing that we can know is that we exist. And beyond that, there's an open field, so to speak. I'm just suggesting this. By the way, I'm not telling anybody that any of this is true. So this is an open investigation, and we're going to go a little bit into that, hopefully a long way into it, during the talk tonight, or the talk. But I just really wanted to lay that down as a foundation and say, well, look, you know, here we are. There's this point of inflection here. And that point is that we begin by saying that we don't know. And then we can go further than that and say, well, there's another whole realm. And they talk about this in all kinds of different things. Werner Erhard, Landmark, all of these spiritual philosophy talks about this. There's loads of different areas, you know, esoteric teachings, that the real juice of life shows up in the realm of what we don't know that we don't know. And very often we could come to the point where we say, we don't know who we are, and then we don't know that we don't know who we are, because we've been led into a way of being that continually reinforces something. But I'm going to suggest that what it reinforces is yet another assumption. So we, as we show up in the world, generally are based on an assumption. Now, I'm going to show you, I'll see if I can share my screen here again, if I fail miserably. Yeah, here we go. So hopefully everyone can see that. And really, this little, well, it's kind of like an elaborate diagram. I'm not that keen on simple diagrams, as you can probably imagine. I like the more elaborate ones. But hopefully everyone can see that. And it's a very simple proposition here, that really there's what I call a radiant mind and a magical reality, or magical mind, magical reality, whichever you want to call it that. And that is always already completely resplendent and flowing. And that really is the majesty, the majestic, the magic, the illumination, the light of consciousness, the light of being, all of these different ways that we can call that. Now, what happens is this, again, this is just a suggestion, that the radiant mind hits the default mind, the little conditioned mind, and it sees only a fraction of the radiant mind. So in other words, the way we are generally creates a distortion and a collapsing in of that radiant mind. So let me see if I can stop the share now. So what I'd like to do now, and if you're all up for it, is to kind of just very briefly just set the scene for an investigation here, and to just come into your center. And it may be good if you close your eyes so you're not kind of distracted by anything in front of you, or the glare of a screen or whatever. So if you can just close your eyes and just relax into your body. And to begin with, just notice anything that's going on in the body. This could be sensations. There could be maybe a vibration, a sense of tightness. Oh. Good sound. And as you just go into that, just allow yourself to go in, just to sink into this sense that there's something going on, that you exist. And now that sense, it may be comfortable, it may be uncomfortable, there may be areas of discomfort. And as you go into that, just allow the question to arise in you that asks, how do I know that I exist? And really, as that question, there's no, I'm not necessarily even looking for an answer. So you just go to a point that you can sense that there's the presence of something, yourself, the body. Is there a focal point? Is there what Castaneda called an assemblage point? Is there a point that you seem to come from? Now, all of these are just suggestions. It doesn't mean that what I'm saying is true for you. And as you're doing this, and you can do this any way you want, by the way, you don't have to even do it. It's just directing your attention into the part of you that knows that you exist. And it's almost impossible to miss it, because there isn't really a part of you that knows that you don't exist. There's even in non-duality, there seems to be a locale, even if it's a universal locale. And then you might start to ask yourself, well, okay, where do I start? And then do I end anywhere? Is there an actual end point? So are you aware that, you could call it even in proprioception, which is your awareness of the space around you. Are you aware of where you actually come to an end without looking? And if you found an end point, if it's in your chest or the end of where your coat or jacket seems to go, that you see, none of this, this is an investigation. It's not like there's a right or wrong answer to this. But I'm going to suggest here, just the suggestion, that it's unquestionable that you're present. And I'm also going to suggest that in that presence has full access to what the diagram I've just showed, the radiant mind, not full access to the diagram, but that radiant, magical, animating intelligence is present as you, through you, and with you. And it's in the world. It's in everything that you interact with. And it's kind of like frozen light. It collapses down into forms, and we get to play as this form. But in a way, this form is an assumption too. And if we can sit with that, we start to realize that there's something even more wonderful at foot here. That the world in and of itself is part of us and we're part of it. But you could say everything leads back to this radiant truth. So if everything emanates from it, everything leads back to it. So in essence, we can begin connecting with in my book, that I actually wrote a book in 2012 called The Guiding Principle. I call this The Guiding Light. It's kind of evolved into the light. And part of that book was to illustrate to people that everything is, I said, everything is radiantly alive with the truth. So you can start from any point and use that as a reference point to come back to this miraculous possibility. And it's also called the signature code of that. It's like the world is a dynamic conversation. And it is dynamic because there is no frozen light per se. Everything's in motion, everything's in moving, everything's changing. But the only thing that doesn't change is that radiance. It's always there, it's always present. And this is kind of the investigation. And what I'm coming to with this is the fact that when you know that, it starts to remove a lot of the other assumptions. When you come to that and you go to it and you are aware of it, it's in your awareness. It becomes something in your awareness. And often if you're a creator or an artist or a musician or whatever, that is present in that, just at that moment where we lose ourselves in the creative process. So we are moved. We stop being the ones doing the, and we are moved, literally. The intelligence moves us. And I'm suggesting that's always the case. Now, if this is the case, then it starts to work on you and it starts to open up the world in a different way, because it's like it opens our vision and we become our own visionary. We become our own questioner. Hey, people still showing up. The other thing that comes through with this is that it gives us a greater scope, because it confirms, the more we look, the more we find this intelligence, presence, and the more we connect with it, the more we understand that it is fundamentally who we are. It starts to undo the knots that have tied us and bound us into a particularly restrictive way of showing up in our lives. And this is a little bit like, I've talked about this quite often, it's kind of what we could describe as the uncurriculum curriculum, the curriculum of unlearning, the school of unlearning. So we begin to unlearn the assumptions that we've been given. Now, the world, the assumptions that we're given by the world have obviously led to what we see playing out in front of us. And whichever way you look at this, the discomfort that most of us are born into and comes upon us at an early age is a product of living into something that is not true. And I'd just like to kind of do an experiment here, if you're all up for it. So I'd like you to imagine something. I mean, maybe you're all totally clear and there's nothing in the way, but I'd like you to just kind of imagine that there's kind of something waiting for you, perhaps, that's, you know, a bigger possibility. And there's something in the way of you, of that manifesting through you. So as you are, there seems to be something in the way of that coming about. And if you've got access, it doesn't matter, you can think about it in your mind, but if you've got access to a sheet of paper or something, if a word to describe that comes into your mind, just write it down. Because what I want to do here is, like I said, it's no use me just chatting. I want you to get this. I want you to be in a position to open your life up to the highest possibility that it is capable of expressing. And it doesn't matter what that is. You know, you will have a unique potential to express in the life that you are manifest in now. So that word, does anyone want to share a word with me? You can drop it in the chat. Any good words?
I have the word time.
Time. Brilliant. Block. Wow. Brilliant. Significance.
I felt self-limits.
Great. Brilliant. A grey block. Fantastic. Great. So the point of kind of looking at this as a word, as words, is to become clear that without the word, without those words, prior to those words, again, this is an investigation. So let's say significance or block or time. Now, without those words, is there still anything in the way?
Belief.
Belief. Very good.
Yeah.
So what if you didn't believe? Let's do it this way. What if someone said to you the same words, but in a language that you had no idea what it meant? Would that be the same?
No, because we wouldn't understand them.
Yeah. So what's interesting here is that I'm going to suggest that all of the thoughts and the words and this sense of sensation, the only thing that's actually there is a sensation. that you could replace significance with a word that was like binga stringum. It could be binga stringum. This is just, it's just a word, yeah? But if there was no word for what you have in the way, would there still be anything in the way?
No.
No. So in that case, if it's in a word and the word isn't the thing itself, I think we've looked at this before when I said, like, when you say tree, the word tree isn't the tree. It points to something. And in this case, with all of our descriptions of stuff and our language about stuff, it points to something, yeah? But I'm going to suggest that it actually, the thing that it tends to point to is actually just a sensation in the body. So significance or block or time is to be found in sensation. And they do a very good job of this on Vipassana, if anyone's done Vipassana meditation. And this is where you start to see that these constructs arise, or this sense of uneasiness, or this sense of something in the way, arises within the structures of language. So again, a baby, for example, doesn't know that if you put something in the way of a baby crawling, it wants to crawl from one side of the room to another, and you put one of those little baby things that stop babies going over the edge of things. It doesn't say, oh, now there's something in the way. There's nothing in the way. Yeah, and it shows up as a sensation, maybe, or a vibration, or a sense of something, but it's not there. So I'm just trying to get us to a point where we can see that the things that are in the way, or that we feel are in the way of us living from this point of wonder, this point of magic, are themselves, in a way, magical spells that we've accepted as true. And in fact, they don't exist. There's nothing actually in the way. And again, this is an investigation. Don't accept my word for it. And this is where I start to, in the other teachings that I offer, it's the same teaching, but in some of the other parts of the teaching that I offer, I start to look at how we structure our language and how we language our reality into being. We speak ourselves into being. And I think on the first one, I talked about shamans when they're healing. They sing things into being, and they sing things out of being with these magical icaras, they're called. And so the point of resonance, the point of sound, all of these things, the way we show up in this world and the way we talk about things and the vocabularies we adopt, we don't get to choose what language we're born into. So generally, if you're born in an English-speaking country, you'll speak English. Maybe if your parents are from another country, you'll speak that as well. But you know, I'm suggesting that you came into that. You came into an already set way of being. And I'm going to suggest further that human being is an already set way of being that we were all born into, this set of rules. And our own possibilities, our own dynamic potentials are weighed down by these assumptions that we've taken to be true about the world, about us. And the process of freeing oneself from the linguistic hold of these spells is a process of opening up to stepping constantly into the I don't know what I don't know. It's an openness that you step into, and it's a trust that you have in life, in the wonder, in the magical quality of life. And it's also a sense that you know that the wellspring of who you are comes from something that is eternal, but the sense of eternal in just being us. Can you imagine being yourself, just who you are, with all of the niggling anxieties and worries and neuroses for eternity? Probably the idea of hell for most people, really. But this bigger possibility is not restricted by any one personality. It's endlessly creative, endlessly unfolding, endlessly exploring. And once we know that that is the wellspring of our existence, it starts to cleanse us of these petty fears and assumptions. So it opens us up to a greater possibility. And that greater possibility is maybe just the tiniest little inkling of coming alive in a different way. And the process of declaring things instead of taking the vocabulary that we're prescribed. So in our culture, we don't, or in our language structures. So for me, I mean, I just use this analogy that they've been kind of hijacked over the years to control, and that's just the story too. But you know, it's kind of a dramatic, interesting story of, you know, good and bad and light and dark and all of those kind of things. But even though the way we're taught to speak and the way we're taught to express things, and I'm saying that if we can get to the point where we start to live through the power of declaration, so to declare something is very different to kind of discuss. Like if you say, I am creating amazing art that will open people to the possibility of living and flourishing fully and openly, exposing the magical quality of existence. It's different from kind of having to rock up and have a plan. Like what I'd like to do is I'd like to create some art that really kind of like moved people. Can you see there's a difference in even the way we declare, you know, when we declare through the act of declaration, it has a different quality. Now, also in linguistic structures, there is different qualitative aspects. So for example, a promise, if you look up the linguistics of a linguistic structure of promising, it's listed, it's defined as an action. So it's different from, you know, I might do this, I want to do this, or even I will do this. When you promise, it's a real, it's like a flag in the territory. It's something that has a sacred quality to it. And the structure of our languages, the way we speak about who we are and what's possible, we can start to evoke this sense of magic and this sense of the sacred and bring it to life through our words. More and more. And just as an interesting thing, if you go back now and look at these words that we put down that we thought were in the way, if you look at those words now, how do they show up? Do they show up as something that's still solid and actually there and actually in the way, or are you, you know, is there a different way that you can look at them now? Are they in the way? Is there anything in the way?
I think they're starting to crumble down a bit.
Yeah. And you see, it's almost like I stumbled upon all of this, and the more I've gone into just even that simple practice of locating that radiance, that sense of radiance in me, the more I've gone, it started to expand, and it started to, in a sense, like I said, it's like a cleansing. And every so often it flares up into like a real cleansing, almost like a medicine journey, where it will show me things, and it will guide me to have conversations. It will lead me into the adventure of life in a way that is an enhancement. And what I've found is that it becomes increasingly difficult to do things that don't serve the presence of that magic. And to the point where, I mean, maybe it's not, maybe for some people it's not, it's not even a great point, to the point where I've even been offered large sums of money to put my creative mind to. And yet that sense of me has moved me away from those, but some, not all of them, thankfully, but some of these opportunities, because it really sensed that there was no possibility of magic within those things, and actually it would be more detrimental overall to move into those, because it wasn't something that was really true for me. And it starts to guide you in a way, and again, don't believe any of this, none of them, just try it for yourself. I'm going to suggest that literally just opening to the possibility that there is a radiant presence that you are completely and utterly connected to, in touch with, and able to reference your life from, will give you the opportunity to experiment with it. And like I said, when you start to become aware and interested in it, it becomes aware and interested in you. That's just a way of speaking about it. And one of the things that has shown up for me is these assumptions about things. It's opened up this childlike curiosity in me. It's almost like a mischievousness. That's the way it kind of shows up for me. And it's like when I hit something that is this kind of, that's telling me, oh, this is true, and this is going to stop you doing whatever you feel that your natural heart should do. It starts to allow me to see these things in vastly different ways, and things that would normally completely like floor me and get in the way and make me feel bad, and all of those things are systematically dissolved by this sense of magic. And I think it was even like, you know, a lot of people, even like Christ or the Buddha or everything, you know, they said, if I do nothing else, just give your suffering over to me, put your suffering at my feet. And really, I think that's what these things are. Like, even they're kind of like representations, this is just my view of it, of that original magic that show up, that somehow push through the scrim of conditioning and assumptions, and are there to kind of allow us to put the things that are no longer true for us, that don't serve us, that feel uncomfortable, to put that at people's feet, these people, these energies, to lay that back down and to let go of it. And there's a great teacher called Michael Singer. I don't know whether you've come across his stuff. He's really funny too. He's quite an old guy now. And he goes into these things that, you know, it's a bit like this idea of surrendering is seen as a weakness. So even the way the language is used, you know, someone's surrendered and it's a failure. And even the way we use language, about this kind of language around disease and illness. And you could say maybe there is only one disease with lots of different labels that come off this one disease called life. And according to what we've taken on, these branches of it may show up. But really what he's saying is that this idea of surrendering in to a higher possibility. So you're not surrendering to the assumptions and everything like that. You're literally surrendering in. So when something comes up, when there's an issue, when something doesn't seem right, even these words, you just hand them over to that magic. And you can even imagine that magic in the world. Start to imagine there's a radiance even around you in the world, and it's showing up. Just give it form. And it's you giving it form is no different from someone saying to you, there's a grey block in the way. You might as well give form to something that has a radiant possibility to it. So you're imagining, to begin with, you imagine it. And you imagine its presence. And you imagine that it's there. And you imagine that it's communicating with you. And you imagine that, and you start to sense whether that has an actual visceral quality to it. And after a while, as you progress with this, it will start to show up. Why not? Why shouldn't it? So I'm just getting you into this sense that you can create I mean, it's going to sound like The Secret, isn't it? I mean, but it's like through the way we speak and the way we move and the way we orientate ourselves, we literally are creating the world. And the more we use our imagination, an image of a nation, the more we use that to actually play with life. So the imagination, what we term as imagination, has been downgraded. So when people, we even use it as a kind of an insult, say, oh, that was just in his or her imagination. As if the imagination's like nothing. But what a freaking miracle that we can imagine. Now, the only downside to it is normally what we're imagining is bound up in the conditioning, bound up in what I call the command, this way things are. If you allow your imagination to focus and create this sense of radiance, this sense of magic, I call it radiance light because we might as well, light seems to be the creator of everything anyway. So we might as well, everyone, you know, if you talk about anything, it's all around light, spiritual light. I'm going to suggest that spiritual light then is transduced down into universal light, and then it is transduced down into these forms through electrical charge and resonance and sound, creates form, or this image of form. But it's all imagination. It's all imagination. So imagination is actually the most fundamental truth, not kind of scientific facts, or these axioms that are not truths at all. So we come back to this thing that if you can imagine something wonderful. And I think Osho said this in one of his talks. Osho, wherever you come from. He said, like, you know, if life is a dream, why not make it a beautiful dream? So we come back again to this idea of using your life, your energy, your potential to weave a beautiful dream, to be a dream weaver. And I'm just going to now suggest that to write something yeah, I like that. Thanks, Nathan Lee. Alex Gray nicknamed you Imagination Lee. Brilliant. Yeah. And I really, really, really want you to get this possibility of the power that you have as a creator, and just the delight that's possible, and if you focus on creating this and imagining this as a possibility, it will start to manifest in all kinds of ways that you can't even yet imagine. So your imagination, the thing that shows up as imagination, is original magic. I'm just saying that, like, again, don't take my word for it. Explore it for yourself, see what happens. But the possibility there is for you to live in a way that is no longer restricted by the way things are. And I was in a cafe the other day, and I got into a conversation with a couple of people sitting next to me. And, you know, obviously the first thing, not obviously, but, you know, mostly the first thing that they wanted to discuss with me was the terribleness going on in the world, and all of these things, you know, the wars and the death and the misery and all of those kind of things. Yeah. And they ended it by just saying, well, you know, that's the way things are. And it's like the collective spell of that's the way things are. Now, I'm not suggesting that these things aren't happening or anything like that. What I'm suggesting is that the place that a transformation starts is really there, that inflection point within yourself. So it starts inwards first, and that's the only place it can start. And the more you imagine this radiance, this radiant mind, this radiant intelligence into your life and into your body, and it's amazing once you start to. I do a lot of sports. I mean, don't mean sports as in, I'm not really a competitive sport, but I like endurance sports. I've run for a long distances. I skip. I do lots of activities. I move a lot. And of course, when that happens, you run the risk of kind of injuries and stuff. And just using this imagination, this light, and infusing my body with that, I notice that my body becomes more flexible, stronger. I feel that there's something alive. There's kind of a magic alive in me. The other thing that has transpired, which has been really interesting, is that a while back, I remembered, this was quite some time ago actually, that I remembered that when I was a child, I used to see energies, like, you know, like things that they have, like, again, that they just say, oh, you know, this is just like nonsense. I could see auras, I could see coronas, I could see energies moving around. I could see it as a small child. And then of course that got, as it tends to, that got educated out of me. And then there came a point where I saw through that education, and again, those things blossomed into being. So I could see these energies. I could see the dance of energies around the world, around my reality. And it just, there was a delight in that, because it was like, oh, something magical has just revealed itself to me. And I wasn't on mushrooms or anything like that. This was just kind of like workaday stuff, you know, just being normal, just throwing my workaday stuff, just throwing my tea over myself. So, not to labor the point too much, although I'm obviously laboring it, is that there is the possibility here for you to come alive for yourself in a way that is both joyful but revealing. It's a revelatory process. So like I said, in that instance, it was this sense of seeing energies, and my vision radically changed. My ability to see things, to see into things, to see details. And then my ability to move, and to not only move, but move in a way that I hadn't moved before. And all these different ways of using my body just showed up naturally. You know, and by many standards, I'm old. So I'm 59, so I'm 60 this year. And you know, somehow I'm doing things that 20-year-olds can do. That's not a boast, by the way, because what I'm saying here is that that possibility is actually alive for us, because what this human form is capable of, we haven't even scratched the surface. What the mind and the imagination is really capable of, we haven't even scratched the surface. And it comes all the way back round to this idea of assumptions again, that we've taken on these assumptions about what life is and what's possible for us. And the way into the greater possibilities, the simplest thing. And I'm going to suggest here again, it's almost like a Star Wars narrative that just to make life even more interesting. That, and I think I've spoken about this before. The downgrading of the Dionysus, the Dionysian principle. Now, the Dionysian principle in its rawest form, I mean, shows up all the way through in shamanic cultures, ancient cultures. It just so happens that, you know, the ancient Greeks gave it this particular name and this particular form. Now, Dionysus in his sort of, actually was kind of like, it was a him or a her, it was a goddess, it was a male, it was a, you know, there was all these different manifestations, but primarily it was the ecstatic nature, our ecstatic nature, portrayed or personified within this goddess in some cultures. And the Dionysian principle has been eradicated and downgraded. So the culture and the structures we find ourselves in, the very worst thing for them is people that are ecstatic. The ecstatic principle in its beautiful, in its most beautiful form. It's not the what they call Bacchus, was it? I think the Romans renamed it, the kind of the drunken god, the god of alcohol. But really, this idea of the original Dionysus became the vine that became the wine. So, but he was the purest form of that. He was even torn apart and went down into the underworld, to Hades, and was fermented in the underworld and grew back up through the vine and was drunk by the goddesses, these goddesses, or these powerful women that shaped reality. And all of the kind of misery we see playing out is a suppressed version of the Dionysian principle. When you don't allow this original magic, when you don't tap into it, when you don't allow it, it turns into madness. And I think in the original mythology, one of, I can't remember who it was now, it might have even been Zeus or someone like, no, I can't remember who it was now. Someone will correct me on this, but the original Dionysus was sent mad. He was half god, half human, and was originally what fell into madness, and then was healed by a goddess. Can't remember her name either, so my mythology fails me here, but was healed by the feminine principle and brought out of the madness and back into that original ecstatic form. And when we are able to reconnect with the Dionysian, the ecstatic, then that is the original link to the imagination and all of this stuff I've been talking about. And so this is really just getting us back to the point where we are anchored to something wondrous. And when you're anchored to something wondrous, the fear and trepidation about life starts to be dissolved. And you'll notice that the things that used to send you into a spin will no longer send you into a spin. It will change you. And this is, it's a practice, it's a process. You know, I've known people that I've actually just mentioned this to, that have come to me and said, look, can you help me to connect with this? And like, bam, it's it's been a done deal, and they're off. And, you know, for others, it's a whole practice over years unfolding. But, you know, there's a point where you just say, look, I don't want to wait years for this anymore. You can you're allowed to be impatient and just say, look, I'm going to just show up in the world and practice this now as if it's real, and see what happens. If what I'm suggesting here is true, in the same way that they were telling us that that we originate, you know, we came from some sort of weird bubonic slime somewhere. Yeah. Now, if we can believe that, why can't we believe that we come from something absolutely miraculous, with an intelligence, a design, you could even say? And that's really going back to what I said right at the beginning, that what these people that are daring to question the established way of looking at things are coming back to is intelligent design. Now, whether you want to call that a god or a creator, goddess, whatever, a principle, it doesn't really matter. But once you're anchored back into that, and you live from it, and you live as it, the petty agonies that we go through, the stories that we tell ourselves about why we're not good enough or why, all start to sound hollow. And like I said, there's this sense of cleansing where those things are exposed as not true. They're just provisional, they're assumptions, and we don't have to live through them. So, God, I said I was going to not chat so much in this, and I've ended up chatting, of course. So that's the whole point. I don't know what's going to happen with these. There's no, I haven't got a script for this. There's no agenda other than just to point these things out and see where it can lead. And, you know, people will listen to this recording, and presumably if I'm recording it, I think I am. Yeah, so it really is that thing of, I don't know any more than you know about this, other than the fact that I've stumbled upon this. And and you could say, well, look, I've been studying it and doing, been on this journey since I was 16, when someone gave me Carlos Castaneda's The Teachings of Don Juan, and it got me. But I was into that even, looking at space and energies when I was a child, and look at me. But all of that is, it doesn't matter, because the same truth is there for you as it is for me. And the fact that I've had the luxury, I suppose, of being able to have the time to investigate and explore has gifted me now the opportunity to try and offer this back to people. That's why I don't want to charge for this. I think it should be, all of us should be given this. They should be teaching us this in school. I teach my daughter this, and she goes to school and they teach her some other stuff, and but that's okay, because just even knowing that the possibility of living from a different vantage point, a different viewpoint, a different context. And it doesn't mean, like I said, that, you know, you don't have challenges and issues. You know, it isn't quite like The Secret. You don't go and dream of the Ferrari and then it shows up in the backyard. Yeah, absolutely. We would just being open to this possibility and sharing it with someone brings it alive as well. And that's all this is about. I mean, you know, whatever it is that you want to create, if it comes from this, it will start to have an energy. And that energy will amplify. And the trick is really that it amplifies in the sharing of it. So this isn't something for shrinking violets. This is to say that we need more than ever to show our wonder, to express our wonder, to live our potential, and to make that the focal point of our days, our hours, and to really explore that. And there's so much more I could go into. I mean, it's almost like the possibilities are endless. And I've only really scratched the surface. And like I said, the things that have shown up as a result of adopting this way of looking, of exploring life, showing up for life, it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving. Now, when I hit something that I can see now so clearly that I've hit an assumption, and that assumption starts to become a bit like the mist that when that, what can I say, the light, literally the light of truth shines upon it, it opens up and it offers different possibilities, not the rote ones that I would have normally gone into. You know, and like I said, I'm nearly 60, so this is kind of, you know, this I haven't lived a whole life like this. You know, I've lived most of my life kind of stuck in the same old and, you know, chasing after this, wanting this, not getting what I wanted, upset and annoyed with people, resentful, sad, psychologically, you know, unhappy. And, you know, as a result of that, I've seen kind of the reflection of that in my physical form, and how when I was fully in that way of living, how uncomfortable it was. And the simple thing that is on offer here, really, if nothing else, is to actually start to feel comfortable and at home and welcome in your own life, your own being, your own body. And the other thing that has been really beautiful about this, I would call it a flowering, is this sense of shame. Yeah, just reading the comments now. Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, it is that sense. For me, I was always very ashamed of certain aspects of myself, and those things have just gone away. You know, some people say, oh, it's because you've got older, but actually, you know, I know it's not. And you know, just sense the sense of feeling that the world is mine to explore with. And you know, I'm so not bothered about acquiring stuff. It's not that, you know, I just, my thing is to just open the adventure of life, to create art, to bring beauty to life in the world in whichever ways I can. That's just my particular characteristic. You know, if your particular characteristic, I'm sure it isn't, but you know, if it's getting a Ferrari, it doesn't matter. You know, it's like we don't have to have a story about it, but it's like what it tends to bring forth is the real sense of exuberance about life, and it dissolves away the anxiety about the future. Now, I don't know what anyone's situation is, but I've been in all kinds of different situations. Certainly, I mean, the last few years we've seen pretty radical situations. And this orientation that I'm talking about here, this guiding light philosophy, you might call it, possibility, gives us something magical to always stay rooted in. When you're rooted in that, when the Dionysian, that ecstatic, your natural ecstatic nature. Now, the ecstatic nature, what's interesting about that, people think it's like kind of, you know, being at a rave the whole of the time, which might be nice for a little bit, but of course it would just drive you crazy. Ecstasy, the ecstatic also encompasses the sadness and the misery of life too. However, what happens is it is literally surrounded by something magical. So you come to be able to arrive and be present for the suffering, be present for all of the things that cause suffering. And you actually feel them more. It's not like you're absolved from feeling anything along with, as this. You actually really feel it. And that's the point. You really feel your life. You really, really, really feel it. You know, and sometimes I'm walking along and I just see a little child just kind of like toddling along with delight, and it absolutely floods me with tears, because I remember, it's like a remembering of when that was lost for myself, that delight. And then in the same moment, there's a delight springs up in the midst of those tears, a kind of ecstasy of saying, yeah, but it's still there for me. It's still present. It never went away. It just got covered over. And this is all this is. It's really just a simple invitation, and all of these kind of ideas and techniques and questioning, they're all useful because we can use them. The idea of declaration, like we've covered, the idea of really examining where you are, your orientation, your body, the energy, and questioning the assumptions that you've been given in life. That's a good question. Is there one way of inquiring daily within ourselves to connect with this quality? Yes, I mean, literally just that thing of just placing your attention on the knowledge, gnosis, the knowledge that you're, the knowing that you exist. There's a point that says I exist. You know that you exist. that is the radiant point. And you just do that whenever you get the opportunity. It's not like you don't have to kind of think, oh, no, I haven't done that. I haven't looked at the radiance, haven't looked at it. And what I've suggested with this, and like I said, you can download that starmancreations.com if you haven't done it. I've even got an instruction audio. It's a bit long-winded, actually, part of it. So you can skip the first half if you don't, and get straight to what I tell you to do. It's literally to look into that part of you that you exist, go there, and after a while, to begin with, you may not notice anything. You might just feel a little bit of a buzzing or a sensation or even a discomfort or a pain, anything. But you just know that you exist. That is something that is you unquestionably know that you exist. Unquestionably know that you exist. That unquestionable knowing has, I'm suggesting here, not telling, has a quality to it. Aha. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I'll see if I can share some of the comments in the chat afterwards, because I think they'll be useful. And really, the body knows already. It is aware of it. It knows. It's completely in tune with what I'm talking about here. It is absolutely the expression of the physical body. And I would say that the feeling, the body, the feelings are in real time. And then, kind of the mind stuff is always either, what we're really, I suppose, what the ideal situation, if we could like an ideal, is like where the mind starts to get the idea that it starts to stop fighting against the body, and it joins it in its possibility of radiance. So just do that on a daily basis. You don't have to do it like, just whenever whenever it naturally arises in you to do that. So it might be if you wake up, you just start to notice that and you start to notice that it has a quality. And I'm suggesting that quality has it's emanating a radiance. And the fact that it's there, we've literally, it's a bit like this whole idea of the fish swimming in water, that it doesn't know what water is. That this illumination, this literally, this light is at the very core of our being. And for the most part, because we're stuck in the mind, it's literally the mind, going back to that diagram I showed at the beginning, the mind is literally drowns it out. We cannot see it. We're unaware that we're radiant. We're unaware that we're ecstatic. And the suggestion here is that actually that's our natural state. And it doesn't mean we don't get headache from time to time. It doesn't mean we don't get aches and pain. All of that, put all of that to one side. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that just doing that will begin to open up things for you. And as things open up, it's almost like it goes up from the base chakra up, and then eventually flowers into the brain and out into the energy, wherever the mind is. I think we use these, like even name brain, mind, body, they're all interchangeable, really. So that's all I would suggest to do. And in conjunction with that, begin to notice your language, how you speak about yourself to begin with, and just notice where it doesn't seem to be you speaking. That was something that really, in fact, if there's anything that's useful, that was something that really did show up for me. That I would almost stop in mid-sentence, because it would be like, oh, who's saying this? Why am I saying, well, why would I say that? And just stop. And often it was where I was about to complain. So complaints are a very good place to notice where what I call this command, this world of assumptions, is showing up. So it normally shows up in our complaints. So we live life as if it's a problem to be solved. So we live into a complaint. And our little complaints are just turn into one great big huge coagulated complaint. But you can pick it up in the little complaints, petty nigglings, criticisms, wanting to be right. And the language, the world comes into being through this language, this linguistic structure. Without it, you know, it's like Byron Katie says, you know, who would you be without the thing that you thought was getting in the way? She's very good at that, you know, with her thing called the work, brilliant stuff. So, you know, is it true? Can I really know it's true? And I think it goes, who would I be without that thought, I'm not good enough, or whatever it is? And then she does a thing called the turnaround, which turns that around. So, you know, John's making me angry. It could be like, I'm making me angry. Or I'm making John angry. You know, so it's kind of like, it's opening up the world to a different interpretation, not the one we're given. Yeah. So when the interpretation comes from a more enriching, ecstatic context, it opens the world up to reveal more of that. So, you know, if we get into like The Secret, it's like the more you imagine that exuberance and that radiance and that light and that communication, that dynamic communication that life is in a dynamic communication with you, the more it will be. And that's just the simple way of it. And so our job really is to just experiment with that. And the more we can experiment with it, the more we can just start to get into the habit of living from this different viewpoint, this different context, this different vantage point. The more you will discover that life is just a kind of radiant possibility. And that's it, really. So I don't know if there's any more, you know, like I said, the experiential, maybe that is the experience that we're just, I'm really just saying the same thing again and again. I don't know whether that is, but one more thing to add to the huge monologue. Good. What was the one more thing? I can't remember the one more thing to add to the huge monologue. It was yeah, the fact that you are here and you're just present for this. You don't even need to really understand what I'm saying, or it doesn't need to make sense, because it's another asana that we're bent into, that everything's got to make sense before it's effective. And you could even just like lie back and not listen to any of this, and it would still have some effect. So, you know, this isn't kind of like delivered as a class where if you know, you go off and you do your homework, and if you haven't touched the radiance properly, you know, you're going to get detention or something. It's more the fact that, you know, I mean, you can tell me, the more you do it, the more you open up to this, the more I'm suggesting, life will start to deliver itself to you in a radically different way. And that's my suggestion. So the more I go on with this, maybe it is just, like I said, I'm terrible at putting this stuff out. So invite anyone you want. The more people you invite, the merrier. And maybe we'll just open it all up, and maybe it'd just be us just all sitting here, just laughing at each other or whatever. I don't know. It could be that, but there is a higher possibility for experiencing our existence. It impacts in ways that are very tangible. So it impacts on health. It impacts on our ability to be effective in the world. It impacts on the possibility that we are able to touch, move, and inspire more people. And it gives us the gift of giving our gift to the world in new ways that show up, having different kinds of conversations, not doing what we always do, taking the opportunity to bring some beauty to life in the world. That's the opportunity that we've all got. And that's what I would love for everybody, because the world will become a better place automatically. And we can lovingly, like going back to the ancient shaman, we can lovingly talk these things out of existence, sing them out of existence, move them out of existence, that do not serve this. But it sounds almost impossible even from where we're at, but it starts here. It starts with you. It starts here. And if you did nothing more than really start to feel at home and enjoy your life, bam, job done. One more person in the world that's at home, feels welcome in the world, and is enjoying their life. And that becomes a message in the world automatically. Alleluia. So is there any more questions? Is there any questions? If does any of this make sense? It kind of makes sense to me, but I'm just hoping it makes sense to.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think I don't know, for me it kind of all leads to one place, which is living from a really joyful place and going back to play again. And what you said about toddlers, really resonates with me, because I see them about and they just make me smile so much.
Yeah.
I really get that. Thank
Brilliant.
you.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's it. Really, you said it, Vanessa. It's like, the more we can do that, and and it just, like I said, just being present. This is just really a presence with all of us here. The fact that it's me voicing off here. I don't even know what I'm saying really. It doesn't. I sometimes like, before I do stuff like this, I sometimes think I've got nothing to say.
True.
Like, I've got absolutely nothing to say. I said to Esther, my wife, before, I said, bloody hell, I've got absolutely nothing to say. I don't know what I'm going to say to anybody. I thought I said it in the first one, and it's just, I'm just rattling off the same old stuff again and again and again. And then I realized, actually, I am just rattling off the same old stuff, but it's kind of maybe, it's kind of like, it's like a soup, different kinds of dishes that, there's just cooked. What is it? They're saying that you can give like 10 people a potato and some will make something delicious out of it, and some people will just taste like a horrible whatever. So I think, you know, I'm just kind of serving this up in hopefully more delicious ways as I go along, if I can.
Yeah, I think there's, sorry,
no,
David.
carry on. Yeah,
Yeah, I was
I'm
just going
done.
to say that, like, sometimes when people say things, sometimes they aren't understood. So to say them in a variety of ways is really great, because then whatever way we're thinking or feeling, we can actually hear what you've got to say. So it's good to say it in different ways, because we can't sometimes hear the message
Brilliant.
so perfect.
Good.
Say it again. It's, you know, it's great.
Yeah, what I
Yeah.
might do is I might hand it all over, like, you know, at some point I'll just drift back into these paintings and just, you know,
I love the paintings. Oh my
just
God.
become a painting.
Where are you? Are you in an office somewhere? Is
No,
that your
no,
hobby?
this is
It's just, that's not a
it's all
room, is it?
fake. It's all fake, like
Fake.
not
Thought
like
it
my teeth.
was.
I've got British teeth, you see. Like,
I just thought that a moment ago. Did you know I was thinking that? I was like, oh, look at how nice his teeth are. That's hilarious. You
I've actually
picked up
got
on
a video on my YouTube about remineralizing and regrowing my teeth. I've been, this is,
Oh, I remember you talking about that.
yeah,
Yes.
kind of been a mission for me. And actually that it's not separate from what I'm talking about here, because, you know, the thing that I've really noticed is that, you know, just the energy level that I've got is it's off the scale, you know, even compared to like 5 years ago. I'm like, bloody hell, what is going on? I've got so much energy, and like
Oh,
the
that's
level
so
of
good.
enthusiasm is like, wow. I mean, I'm like, what on earth is going on? Just the energy. I mean, and that doesn't mean that you know, I don't fall into the grumbling patterns as well from time to time. But, you know, I think because something's come alive with this, and it won't. It's almost like when you see something, you can't unsee it. If that makes any sense, it's like I can't go back to the old way of doing things.
Mm,
Doesn't work anymore, and so
mm,
the it's like someone taking 40 pounds of weight off my shoulders. In a way, there's a lightness of being that wasn't present before, and that's
mm,
what's made it. That's what even just motivated me to share it, because I'm like,
mm.
flipping heck, you know, imagine like if I could just say a few things and people could really get the fact that there's a lot more energy available than most of us. You know, it's like, I think I said it in the last one, if you know, if you hold up a thimble, even if the ocean fell on your head, that's all you get. And it's
Mm.
like that's all we're holding up, you know, and we're
Oh,
taught to do that.
I mean, flipping egg. That's what I'm missing at the moment, of lacking energy.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's my wish, to have fantastic energy.
that is totally, that is one of the main things that, you know, forget all the art and all the other stuff. I mean, you know, I was banging away at that. I've been doing that for my whole life, more or less, you know. My father-in-law is still wondering when I'm going to get a proper job, you know, and
And my
it's great, you know, like, because in a way, as time goes on, time actually comes on your side, as if you're an artist or a creator, because there comes a point where, you know, it's no longer viable for you to get a normal job, because you're too old, and you've been, you know, I think the last job I had, I was 25 or something. So you know, you become completely unemployable in normal world terms. So you've got no choice but to just keep being an artist and keep creating. So that's the good news. I don't know where I was going with this, but
yeah.
that's it really. But yeah, I just want everyone to, yeah, energy. That was it, energy. So the point is that when you have more energy, it just on a purely practical level, the holding on to things like all of these, what became very apparent to me was that so many of the grievances and upsets were actually stored physically in my body. It's like cellular memory, you could call it. And the more I've done this, they've kind of just cleared. And sometimes I've even it's felt like sort of a glitch in the matrix. It's like, oh, and then suddenly, oh, that's gone. You know, that thought I had about that person is just gone, and I can't even go there anymore. It doesn't even show up. And then that makes you a bit lighter. And then the energy that was holding on to that now becomes available to do other things. It's like when you're fasting, you know, when you're not eating, you're not using all that energy to digest food. Suddenly, I mean, if anyone's done a prolonged fast, you know, normally for about first couple of days feel absolutely dreadful. And then once your body switched over into, you know, living on the ketones or whatever it is, you know, the fat sources of the body, doesn't have to digest food, and you suddenly spring into life. There's got like masses of energy, and you think, you know, bloody hell, how come I've got so much energy? I'm not eating anything. But the reason is that it's on a greater level with this, when you let go of all of these petty anxieties and grievances that are stored, hurts, upsets, traumas, you know, whether it's childhood traumas, whether it's relationship, you know, whatever that is, you know, dis-eases, anything, once that starts to, it's almost like it gets pushed out. And every time it gets pushed out, you feel a lightness, you start to get a lightness of being, and it allows you to have more energy. It's just as simple as that. It's a simple equation. More energy you've got, the more you can show up in the world, the more you can explore life, the more the adventure unfolds. So, you know, if nothing else, it's that's kind of a possibility on offer anyway. And there are other things that you can do, which I will go into more, of how I've been given I don't even know what it is, whether it's wisdom, knowledge, or download of things that will increasingly enhance the energy and, you know, in a sense, reinvigorate the body and the mind. So the more I've gone on, the more these things have become apparent to me, and I can see where I'm losing energy, and I can see where other people are losing energy. So yeah. So I'll probably leave it there, because I know everyone probably thinking, oh my God, I'm going to fall over backwards because it's a lot.
No, I mean, what you've just said is absolutely valid for exactly what I'm doing that steeps away all my energy. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I just want to say thank you, David. One of my teachers, he wrote the book on egregores, literally the book on egregores. His name's Mark Stavish, and one of his 4 maxims you're really hitting home on is you need to increase your energy level. And you also have a wonderful, I'm not going to talk about your chart, but someone has a lot of galactic center energy, which makes him a never-ending source of the highest inspiration. Looking at someone, yeah, you have a direct connection to the galactic source, so it's really cool.
Well, thank you, sir. That's really cool. And, you know, just your expertise and your knowledge about all of these, the esoteric world and the occult is amazing too. I learned so much from you, so thank you. That's really nice to hear. But yeah, and you know, like I'm back in the hot seat next week, and you know, if you want to show up, I don't know who's going to show up. You know, it's not even, I don't even do this for, you know, sometimes, let me put it this way, sometimes it's actually not that easy to sell people the possibility of their own freedom and exuberance. You know, because it just even thinking it's a possibility to live with this high radiant energy is like, you know, I don't know, sometimes I say it to people and they say to me, oh yeah, but you know, isn't that sort of just sort of spiritual gobbledygook and all of that, you know, or isn't that kind of yoga, or isn't this, you know? So sometimes even just saying that, you know, there's a different possibility that could be alive for you. And if you're not, you know, if you're not feeling fully alive now, maybe it's worth just experimenting with this, you know. And but it's not always that easy to bring people into this, you know. We get so stuck in our own discomforts, and sometimes they become so familiar that we, you know, we don't even want to show up for something that could release those, because it sends us into the unknown. And for most of us, we've been taught that the unknown is kind of a terrifying thing. But actually the known is even more terrifying as far as I'm concerned, especially the known that's manifesting at the moment. You know, the unknown unfolding moment to moment is an adventure. So, you know, that's what we're expecting. So I don't know, I'll be here next week, and if people want to show up, that'd be great. And I'll put this up, like I said, hopefully I've recorded this. You know, I'm increasingly useless at doing anything technical, even though my whole life's been sort of advanced computer graphics and all stuff like that. I get my daughter saying, I said, oh, you know, you can't even open an app on your phone. What's going on? So so maybe that's another consequence of connecting to this, is you actually want to spend less time in front of a screen than more. But yeah, so next week, hopefully at the same time, same place. I'll put it out anyway to on various platforms and whatever, so you can see. And really, if you know, if you just feel that it helps you in some way, then show up and see what happens in your life. And you know, I'll probably spout a whole load of stuff that's the same stuff but in a different flavor next time. So thanks. I mean, unless there's any kind of pressing question, you can always just message me and stuff like that. I'm happy to, you know, kind of offer anything that might help to lift the possibility. So, you know, feel free. I'm available. I'm not, you know, I'm not kind of a superstar or anything like that. I'm just little old me sitting at home doing my art kind of thing. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much thank you for your energy. Thank you for showing up, because it really does make a difference. So
Thank you very much. I can't believe how, like, that felt like it was 40 minutes and it's been nearly 2 hours. It literally just went.
do you know, I can't believe it either. It's like I vowed I'd only sort of do this for about 45 minutes, but there you go.
No, honestly, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
Great pleasure. Great pleasure.
So much. Really amazing, really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, great to see you. Great to be here with everybody. It's just
cool.
I think it's what's needed. With that, you know, just so grateful for you spending the time with us and sharing this.
Yeah, it feels like just a natural thing to do, and especially at this time, I really feel that there's a possibility here, and you know, the more of us that can just bathe in the possibility and take it out and do whatever we can with it, it's we'll see. You know, the world will be what it is, and you know, eventually beauty will win out. Beauty will save the world, as Dostoevsky said. So but anyway, big love to you all, and see you when the digital wind blows us back together. Great pleasure. Have fun. Bye.